Hello YouTube. Welcome back. I'm not going to say welcome back to Nutkin Farm because I couldn't get there now, even if I wanted to, and if I could get there, there isn't a lot of good I could do because of the flooding rains that have happened in late January and early February 2022, which will go down in history as the largest flooding rains that have ever happened in recorded history in the Northern Rivers. What you're looking at, out of interest, is a subtropical crop that grows rather well in my home in Sydney, which is ginger. I noticed that was selling for over $60 a kilo in the local fruit shop, and I thought, gosh, that's more than macadamias. That can't happen. So I'm growing a bit of ginger just as a bit of a project here. But yes, back to the rain. I mean, Lismore has suffered its worst ever flood, worse even than the famed flood of 1974 that Bruce Chester mentioned recently in one of his interviews. And Sydney's copping it right now. It's the same east coast low that's been going around, and for some reason there's a tiny break in the weather and a little bit of sun. So I thought this was a nice backdrop for the discussion. How much rain? Well, look, there was so much water already in the soil that when you do get some rains, even small amounts can cause little bits of flooding because the water just has nowhere to go except in the outfalls and in the various creeks and rivers. But the critical day was 28 February after a lot of sort of more normal rain. The Austinville Plateau got 364 millimeters in a single day, which is a massive amount of rain, and its largest daily rainfall prior to that was about 260 millimeters, and that was a long time ago. Rosebank, however, lived up to its reputation, and that and the Eureka Plateau got a whole lot more. Rosebank's total for that day was 620 millimeters. More than half a metre of rain in a single 24-hour period, and the monthly total at the end of that month was 785 millimetres for Austinville, 1145 millimetres for the Rosebank area, and that is just well beyond. It smashed all records for monthly rainfall, for daily rainfall. The average for Rosebank in a normal year would have been 277 millimetres, 215 in Austinville, but there's just an enormous amount of water that came down on the entire macadamia growing district. Now, how does that affect macadamia farmers? Well, probably not as badly as it affected the people of Lismore, who've lost everything. Lismore's famous for homes on stilts and businesses that were raised up above expected flood levels, but the stilts weren't high enough this time, and our base of operations in Lismore is going to be badly affected for some time. I've already got emails from Ongmac. I'm sure the other rural suppliers and rural machinery suppliers, which are all on the flat, low ground, are going to have problems in terms of both supplying machinery and servicing it for quite a while, and there may well be some insurance claims that arise from that. Depends on whether people had their premises or equipment insured, and that's going to be a touchy subject because particularly in the Lismore CBD it hasn't been insurable for flood for a while. I mean, the last of the insurers stopped offering flood coverage around about the time of Cyclone Debbie, and anyone else buying flood coverage is paying apparently premiums of up to $20,000 a year for flood coverage, and you just can't do that. So the implication for our big regional centre in the Northern Rivers is bad in the sense of, farmers rely on the services at Lismore and they'll be down for the count. What about the farms themselves? Well, it depends where you are. On plateaus, there's going to be a difficulty getting rid of water that just sits around, because the flatter the land, of course, the water can just hang around in puddles and small dams and undulations, and it really takes a bit of sun or wind to dry it out. Right now there's neither of those things, and in fact the next 10 days up to about the middle of March, it's just forecast to rain every single day, but not in those quantities that we've experienced. So that's the problem for the flatlands. For the sloping lands, for the lands further up, like mine, the big problem is going to be erosion. Thankfully, I've had a chat to Peter Fraser. He thinks the harvest has really been delayed by the constant rainfall, and that the nuts hadn't started dropping because that final ripening hasn't had a chance to happen. Now, if you've got early dropping varieties that have dropped, that nut will largely be washed away. Even on flatland, there'd be a fair bit of wash. But yeah, the main problem in that is going to be erosion. The drainage, of course, is much better in the hilly areas. But yeah, it's what drains away that you have to worry about. I've had some eyes on my farm, the highly grassed areas which I wasn't able to mow. Thankfully, the long grass that I couldn't cut is a blessing because it slows down the water flow very effectively. But the older blocks where there's no real ground cover, well, you suffer what happens, and this is why they say you need good ground cover, because at times like this your soil can wash, cause a lot of gutters, that sort of thing. What that means is that it takes probably a good week of sun to dry out, and then if you're really lucky you can get the harvest surface prepared for harvesting, which means smoothing it all out. But yeah, you've certainly got to wait a little while before you can get something as heavy as a mulcher on that soil. In the sugarcane flats, I have seen pictures of macadamia farms just swimming in water. Yeah, the areas that used to grow sugarcane obviously used to be flooded at times of the year. The farmers planted on mounds in order to improve the drainage profile. But again, you know, what we've gone through is beyond all prediction, and those mounds are not tall enough. The question then becomes, well, you know, can that drain away quickly enough before the roots of the small macadamia trees start to rot and die? They don't like wet feet. So it is bad news at a reasonably bad time for all macadamia farmers. Some will do better than others. It's a question of how quickly the lands can drain and when the crop falls. Obviously, those with later dropping trees will be thanking their lucky stars that their crops do drop late. But those with the early droppers, the 344s, the 741s, that kind of thing, we're going to have some issues if that crop starts falling before anything else. As to Nutkin Farm personally, I am going to show you a couple of videos, hopefully they won't mind, of friends who've looked at both my farm and also the nearby waterway, Coopers Creek, because the vision from what happens to a severely flooded waterway is absolutely worth seeing. The short version is the farm seems to have escaped fairly lightly in terms of, you know, what might have happened. My dam and the dam wall that I have on my property has held up like an absolute Trojan. It would never have been designed for flooding of this level, but it's performed perfectly, thankfully, and I must have been good as a child or something because we've got very little impact. Here in Sydney, well, you know, the storm is still hitting. I'm sorry about wind in the microphone, but it's a bit of a calm before the storm here, where we're expecting some evacuations in Sydney itself, and some more systems are coming through. Longer term, well, we're hoping farms get some relief to perhaps replace some topsoil, which is something that Bruce Chester said he got after Cyclone Debbie. I'll be looking forward to seeing if I can get a grant to do some farm rehab. But the demand on services, the demand on people removing trees, repairing roads and everything else will be very high for quite a while. It's a year, 2022, that will go down in history and not with fond memories at all. So I'm going to leave you with these amateur visions of the area. Enjoy them if you can. I hope everyone who watches these in the local area is safe and stays safe. And I hope that, you know, I can get a chance to come up there soon once the airports reopen and pitch in and help how I can. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye for now.
Hopefully the road's still there. Looks like it might be. God for gumboats. Oh, Jesus. Poor little tree. How high the water got? That's probably about 8 meters, I guess. Well, this tree's probably going to come down. I'm not going to try and cross it.
Hey mate, we're down at your little creek. It's not a little creek no more. Have a look at this. This is your side. There's your little track just back there. Good thing about it, mate, you don't have to mow it. It's all mowed. Let me get to the creek a bit. Look at this up here. Looks nice, mate. Looks nice. Canoes are there. That's a good sign. The water didn't come that high. Pump's good. And you've had some water flowing. But all good.